Where do we think AI will have the most dislocative effect? And I think personal health is the biggest one. That includes mental health.
It is like this basket of companionship more than anything.
I've been reading up on some of these situations where people have had ChatGPT level psychosis. That scared me.
Natural, insane extension of this would be like, let's rewire the human brain to optimize it for AI.
AI revenue research prompt, tech growth, record comparisons, H-1B visa research, CAC payback in tech.
I'm a normie and you are not. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Topline. It's Sam Jacobs, CEO Pavilion. I'm joined by Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency, and today's guest star co-host, Kyle Norton, the CRO of Owner.com and the host of the Revenue Leadership Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into three topics. The first, ChatGPT usage and how it's evolved. How is everybody using AI now that we are over 3 years into the AI revolution? Second, Lovable, Replit, and all of the vibe coding platforms. Their search traffic has dropped. Is it the end of vibe coding as we know it? And finally, what's the problem with Europe? Why can't anybody build a meaningful company in Europe? And what is everybody in Europe's problem? Those are the three topics we're going to dive into today on Topline.
I like how we're taking shots at Europe, but we also mentioned Lovable off the top. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
there's some exceptions.
It's not a perfect, we're just going for clicks. We're going for views. We're going for long-term engagement. Let's dive into it. So, Asad, let's kick us off. What's happening with ChatGPT?
So the National Bureau of Economic Research put out a really comprehensive and really interesting report on how people are using ChatGPT and how that use has evolved over the last 12 months. So we're going to talk about this in a second. Before we do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to share some things with you guys and see if you can guess correctly or not how this use has evolved. So let's do a couple of those and then we'll jump into the actual conversation. The first one is work versus non-work usage. So for context, this study only looks at the use of people that have a personal ChatGPT account, but a lot of people, myself included, use our personal accounts for work-related tasks. So there's work and non-work related tasks. In June 2024, Sam, non-work was 53% of the total use of ChatGPT, and work, hence, was 47%. In June 2025, do you think non-work has become 23%, has stayed flat at 53%, or increased dramatically to 73%?
I was going to say 75. Some kind of Pareto law, much higher usage of personal than work.
You are right. It is 73%. Why do you think that? Like, well, why were you so sure that it's so much higher? I was surprised by this.
Because I think the work use cases are becoming more opaque as the quality issues with AI become more visible. I think as more people use AI for work, they understand that there's a lot of QAing that needs to be done, and it's actually not that easy to build AI workflows. But I think, on the other hand, we're going through our day, and every time we have a question, every time we want to talk about a cultural matter, every time we want to just brainstorm on something, ChatGPT is right there. So I find myself talking to it about any number of insane, stupid personal things. And I do use it for work, but not nearly as much as I use it for personal use. And I knew where you were going with that question, and I reflected that my personal patterns were probably representative of the global human population.
You were right in that call. That was the right call. It's interesting because I've noticed my personal use has dropped ever since I've been reading up on some of these situations where people have had ChatGPT level psychosis. That scared me. Like, I'm actually using it a little bit less for personal use since I read those, because they were seemingly normal people, and then weird things started happening. But I'm gonna, by the way, before we go to the next topic, but keep asking your questions, but I've got a final question. I've got a surprise question for the two of you. Kyle, so there are 3 use cases that make up the top 3 use cases for ChatGPT. One is writing, the other is seeking information, search, and the third is practical guidance, what Sam was just talking about. We know that non-work is the number 1 use case, and so practical guidance obviously has to be number 1. That leaves seeking information and writing. Of those two, which do you think is the higher use case?
Seeking information would be my guess.
Why?
I think for many, it's replaced Google as your homepage for getting answers. Certainly has for me, and I think a lot of people who are habitual daily users, that it's just our instinct now.
Even though that is the same for me, I use it for search more than anything else, search and research, but writing trumps seeking information as a use case. Yes.
Very interesting.
Wow.
I was listening to an A16Z podcast recently, and they were talking about within the practical guidance category, companionship is actually like the top use case of all the things people use ChatGPT for. It is like this basket of companionship more than anything.
As in like personal companion. So as people are becoming lonelier, they're turning to ChatGPT to kind of fill that void.
And personal advice.
I use it for
using it
personal
as
advice.
using it as their pseudo therapist or executive coach is a massive use case. Apparently, Olivia Moore, who's one of the AI investors, there is a good follow on Twitter, and a bunch of their AI episodes are great. But I was shocked by how big this space is, because it's not really a use case I use it for, but it seems like for a bunch of the normie population, it is like their biggest use case.
That's me. That's me. I think it's really interesting how people are getting lonelier and lonelier, and this obviously helps with that. We haven't found like a great implementation of it as a product for an exec coach or a therapist yet, but like there is this massive thing. Like executive coaches are only really available to people that make a lot of money, but they could be most useful to people that don't make a lot of money, or even like a mentorship type of AI. But no one's really released that. I haven't come across it.
Because I don't think you need much more than what is in the model. I don't think you need to put a wrapper around it. You can use a mixture of panel or mixture of excerpts approach, or just with like decent prompt engineering. The post training they've done for this specific use case is clearly incredible. Like out of the box, it functions really, really well.
Let's look at work related use only, Sam. So again, writing, practical guidance, and seeking information. Which do you think is number one when it comes to work?
Writing.
You are right. Writing is 41.8% of the way that people use it at work. And of that 41.8%, 34% is asking ChatGPT to do the writing. And so with writing, you can ask it for advice and feedback, or you can just say, write me this email. The greater majority of people are just abdicating to AI and say, can you just write me this email? Can you write me this document? And so we see this word AI, work slop. We've all seen those things, right? The email that you just look at and instinctively you don't want to read it. The document you get that's 18 pages that says nothing really. That's really what's happening. Like the majority of people are just like completely abdicating. Simple prompt, copy, paste, send.
It's why Fixer is so popular, even though, for me, as somebody that I consider myself a decent writer, I don't actually use the auto drafting functionality within Fixer, but when I imagine the millions of people that aren't naturally good writers, I imagine that's a massive market. As somebody was saying over the weekend, a real estate agent going back and forth on when to show up for the viewing doesn't, that might save hours and hours and hours of time. So I believe that.
Kyle, how does this map with your own use or what you've seen?
Maps pretty well. I ChatGPT / Claude, I use as a co-pilot writer all the time. The newsletter for the podcast, for example, I've spent hours and hours on the prompt that I use to turn the transcript into newsletter content, and I've got a whole workflow that I like. Anything that I do repeatedly, performance reviews, for example, I'll spin up like a quick and for that was ChatGPT, but a quick project, I'll use Prompt Cowboy to help me create a half decent prompt that I'll do a hand edit on. So
why are you using Prompt Cowboy versus just asking it to write you the prompt and then just copy pasting that prompt?
I do both. Prompt Cowboy, I find I can be like super lazy with. So I use Super Whisper. I just hit the function key. I like blather away, and then it gives me like a much better format. And oftentimes I'll take that and then put it into ChatGPT and like have it make some edits for me. Some of these things, I don't know, they just become habit, and you do it this way. I was doing all of my meta prompting with ChatGPT, and now it's sort of split. Certain projects will flow from one model to the other, depending on like what I think about the outputs and as the models change. So
I find this to be one of the challenges that we're dealing with as an organization, because I think we've been pretty forward thinking in terms of using all the tools and trying to see what they're good at. But what they're good at keeps changing. So an example of this, Sam, is that Perplexity for a while was a better deep research platform for this thing that we do. And up till maybe a few months ago, it was better by a margin. Now it's no longer the better place, but the comfort everybody has is using Perplexity. They're like, but I like using Perplexity. It's not that bad. Like, it's only a marginal difference here. And so I think a lot about in our organizations, it's not just getting people to use AI, but it's having that like mental flexibility to say, I'm also going to keep switching between these things as something gets better at something else. Have you noticed this type of the stickiness becoming a problem? And how does one create not just this energy to use AI, but this dexterity to keep switching things?
Let me question the core premise of what you just said. I think the advice that you would give somebody to keep switching tools because one might be 1% better is terrible advice.
What if it's 10, 20% better?
It's still terrible advice.
Really? I think
Yeah.
20% is a good margin of like benefit to like switch something.
I think this is the tail wagging the dog. I have to say, Asit. I think that we're lost in the woods, and we're solving for using the best AI tool that is marginally better than the other versus solving the problem for the client that we're working on.
It's a good point.
I don't think human brains are wired. I mean, maybe listen, it's like the natural insane extension of this would be like, let's rewire the human brain to optimize it for AI, because at any given time there might be a new tool that's emerging that's slightly better than the one that we've just spent the last 6 months training ourselves to use. But I think that I was just trying to think about this. Like, would you teach if it was 2000? Would you be teaching your team like, listen, guys, I want you to run searches on Alta Vista, Lycos, Yahoo, and Google, and then we're going to compare all 5 results every time. It's like, let's use what we have. A winner will emerge. We don't necessarily need to be the ones that are arbitrating the winner. We can leave that to the market to a certain extent. And when the new tool emerges and everybody consolidates around it, then we can all pick the winner as opposed to...
So this is an interesting point. So
thank you.
Clicking into what you're saying, there's a certain amount of improvement on what you're used to that something has to present for switching to make sense. What type of improvement do you have to see? So if I'm using something, it's good enough, but something is 100% better, then I switch, obviously. But what's the minimum level of improvement at which point switching is the right thing to do?
I think is there a world in which I would have become a math major and then become an AI researcher and then make $3.5 billion working for Zuck? Maybe. But in my current world, where I haven't really worked on statistics in a very long time, although I did okay when I took statistics class. My point is the algorithm would not just include how much better one tool is versus the other, but it would include some kind of overall, like alpha or beta or some kind of overall estimate of the overall volatility of the market in which that tool was operating and the rate of change of that market, and then the half-life or decay rate of the permanence, the moat of any possible tool. My point is, like, one tool could be way better in just, in 2 days. And you look at it and you say, okay, everybody shift to this tool. And then there's another tool and now you're causing all of this thrash within the organization. So I would say if you incorporate if I'm going to assume that the new tool is going to maintain its advantage over the existing tool, and I would say maybe it has to have had maintained that advantage over like 6 to 9 months. Otherwise, everybody's running around chasing tools and not solving problems for the client. And then I would say, 30% better. Like, I think 10 to 20% is really hard to measure. And again, this is probably the nature of like a lot of work that business schools should be doing right now. Like we need the new Porter, we need some new organizational theorist to help us understand what is the way that we should be thinking about using tools versus driving outcomes and productivity. Because I think right now, to the point of what we're talking about, we're all so terrified that we're losing productivity by not AI optimizing our organizations. And it's still not immediately clear that that's what's happening. But what we definitely are doing is causing all of these people within the organization to run around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying out every new tool.
And let me answer this a slightly different way. I think if there is a workflow that is so important to your business that it could be improved, that you could see material business ROI through a 20% or a 10% model improvement, then that has to be something that you are centrally managing. And I wouldn't be advocating that it's a process that you're just letting your teams decide on how they do in their own workflow. And so if this is like candidate research, if candidate research changed your close rates or placement rates by 2x between good and not good, well, then you should be building an internal tool that is model agnostic. And in the background, you could be changing the model. And so, we hired this GTM AI lead, and this is one of the things that he's doing using Prompt Layer, is being able to like test and iterate our core prompts in the background with proper evals to see, okay, if we change these prompts in this different way, or we add this additional context, we're going to get this type of lift, so that the end output that goes to the rep is just going to get better and better over time. But the person that should be making those decisions is your GTM AI lead or RevOps.
And the rep, there's no difference. They're just using the same interface. The front end for the rep is the same. The back end is what you guys keep switching around.
If it's so important that a 20% improvement on the model actually matters for the business
metric,
because I agree with Sam's point. The cognitive switching cost is significant. Yeah. You only get a certain number of like change credits every month or every quarter. You can only ask people to change so many things. And if you're asking them to switch from Perplexity to ChatGPT Deep Research, you're spending some of your change credits, and now you can't have them change the way that we do candidate discovery or outreach or whatever it is. And so I would be thoughtful about only asking people to make change when you really see the ROI there. And if there's something that you see yourself iterating in this way, that should really be a centralized process versus something that's just left to the team.
I just love what Kyle said about the centrality of the workflow. If it's a core strategic workflow, then it should be always optimized. But if it's not, we kind of have to live with the fact like, hey, maybe they're using Lycos for 6 months, even though Google's been around. But, a year later, Google is clearly the winner. PageRank is clearly won as like the dominant algorithm. Okay, now we can all switch to Google. Google won.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Kyle, as you've been at the forefront of implementing AI in your go-to-market team, what's new or something that has changed over the last few months in terms of how you're using this and some benefits that you're getting out of it? Anything new and interesting that's popped up that wasn't around or wasn't possible before? Or are we in this optimization phase where like you already have the core stuff built out and now everything is improving incrementally?
So I don't think this is driven by model changes or where the market is going. This is sort of more, and I think this is the same for most companies. What you're doing different now than 6 months ago is really driven by like, where are you on your AI adoption journey? Where are you on that maturity curve? And so for us, we just hired YG. And so one of the things that he's doing is trying to get the right infrastructure in place. So we've all been implementing AI pretty willy-nilly in a bunch of different ways from a personal productivity standpoint. There's the centralized stuff like Momentum and Avara and OneMind that is centrally deployed. But what the reps are doing is a good example of where it is like pretty all over the place, and we need the right infrastructure to do the evals and the testing and the iteration in a thoughtful way. And so we're building some stuff. We're building some new interesting use cases, without a doubt. But we've also taken a bit of a more holistic view to look at, do we have the right underlying infrastructure? We've in-house built a whole bunch of code to do scraping and enrichment and lead scoring and what have you. But now the question is like, well, should we honestly just replatform to Clay? Should we look at, we're thinking about building our own sales tech stack. And so like, now are we going out and what is the foundation that we're building these things on? So we're actually looking at the building blocks today more than
When
chasing
say more
use
about
cases.
building your own sales tech stack. What does that mean?
Well, our business is unique in that we sell to SMBs. We sell to mom and pop restaurant owners that aren't on their email all that much. And the SalesLoft Outreach Apollos of the world are all built for selling to people who buy by email. And 90% of our meetings are booked over the phone, but there's not really a great sales tech stack for that. SalesLoft is, even if you just look at the UX of where the rep lives, it's all about the email, but it's not really a UX that is meant for having a live conversation with a customer, where the information lives and how the screen is built and what information you could populate. And so I believe there's a future. And if you're a founder, you want to build this, we'll be your first customer and I'll give you my whole mental roadmap. Some of it is actually in PRDs because I've been trying to convince people to build it. But I want to build something that's native for people who sell via the phone, that is like AI native. And I've looked around a bunch. There's not really anything great. And so we might try to build this as like a skin on top of Salesforce or through Chrome extensions, plus like moving all of the cold emailing into the background, which we're in the process of doing. So we're thinking about like reinventing the whole.
Like one of the biggest disservices that these email automation companies did was this propaganda that calling people is just, it doesn't work to such an extent that all our workflows are now built around email. Like the fact that you're saying this is, as a salesperson, just sad that you don't have a product that prioritizes picking the phone up and calling people and enabling that at scale, efficiently, effectively, etc. It just feels very, very sad to hear that.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame the tech platforms for it. I think once emailing got a lot easier, you had a whole bunch of reps that were like, I can live behind my keyboard and not have to do the scary hard thing of making a cold call. And I actually think it was more driven as a reaction to the market than it was these companies being like, we're going to just build email products because that's what we want.
I think a little bit of propaganda of like, here's the response rate of it
Sure.
all, wasn't that?
Awesome. Before we go, here's my question. I want both of you to open up your ChatGPT instance, and I want you to open up the left rail, and we're going to read. And as long as it's not deeply personal, like terrible test results or something, we're going to read the last 13 titles of the GPT conversations that we've had. I'll go first so that everybody can feel it. Approve post-promotion. And you can ask questions about any of these. Approve post-promotion, NFL kicker accuracy increase, Buffalo Bill name origin, scaling smarter outline, chess mind training techniques, stable coin value and use, book summary request, send book via Bluetooth, Kindle charging light issue, VS1 clarity ranking, PDF order form summary, AI bubble sources and evidence, itch relief in Spain.
You're like the average user. Oh, that's hilarious. Which was the most interesting response out of those 13?
I Well, the most interesting, the most in-depth was the stablecoin discussion, because I just really didn't, I was like, give me the primer, because
Yeah.
we need to get up to
This
speed
thing.
on this stuff. And then I was happy to know that somebody, yesterday while we were watching football, was saying, what is the origin of the name Buffalo Bills? And I was like, well, it sounds like Buffalo Bill Cody. Let me guess that that's what it was. And I was correct.
Ah, okay.
All
I'll
right,
go
your
next.
turn.
And
Go.
then we can see Kyle's. Mine is hyperscaler CCO search criteria, model releases and products, AI revenue research prompt, tech growth, record comparisons, H-1B visa research, CAC payback in tech.
Oh my God. So I'm a normie and you are not.
I am just thinking of one thing these days. Gates software revelation, HubSpot growth and market, Palantir research, time conversion UK to EST, Drucker management influence,
Oh my
startup
God.
exit rates in the US.
You are a very boring person. You are a one-track mind. All right,
That's
Kyle,
funny.
your turn.
So you will quickly discover that I took a bad spill on my bike last week, and I got stitches under my chin because I have wound healing advice, insurance plan comparison, shoulder separation test, check for ticks, because we found a tick on my daughter yesterday. Awesome.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Sales training recommendations, Bermuda Triangle, myth versus science.
That's a slippery one.
We could go down that rabbit hole. Just change the whole docket. PLG and sales-led B2B, text change request, learning style analysis, signature identification tips. I don't even know what that one is. Building corporate athlete mindset, high yield credit spreads.
There we go. I thought that was a very fun exercise, and I appreciate
I
both
think that
of
was
you for
fascinating.
participating.
Sam, how do you feel that two of your creators are just falling all over the place? He fell off a bike. I fell down the stairs twice. What's going on here?
I don't feel like you're my creators, just my friends. And I feel like, well, I mean, honestly, that's where do we think AI will have the most dislocative effect? And I think personal health is the biggest one, and I think that includes mental health. I think, to Kyle's point earlier, that people are using this for therapy. Therapists are using AI to model responses when they're actually in sessions with patients. And I think that there's lots and lots of people that are using it for medical advice. And this is where the great danger of AI comes into play, which is that the key feature of LLMs is not accuracy, but persuasiveness. And so you just have to make sure that you're double checking some of these things, because it will definitely make up some stuff. Sometimes it'll be generally correct, but generally correct typically is, is this thing allergic to my dog? You don't need generally correct. You need specifically correct, so that you don't kill your dog.
Sherry done some tests, and she found that there's these growths that she has. And so she gets the report before she sees the doctor. She puts it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT makes it feel like this lady is about to die. And so she was very concerned, very upset, like pulled me out of the office. We were like, holy shit, the world's falling apart. I was like, 1 second, let's just give it a breather. Like, you're going to the doctor tomorrow, have a conversation with the doctor, goes to the doctor. Doctor's like, yeah, there's nothing to worry about. This is not a problem. And so I've seen it do that. And at the same time, I've seen, I've told the story of how my mom would take recordings from her conversations with the doctor, upload it, and be able to go deeper and then understand the thing a lot more. So I've seen both ends of it. It's so powerful, but it can also cause a lot of anxiety and be very wrong.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important changes with respect to health is, certainly in the Canadian healthcare system, you really have to own your own healthcare outcomes.
Yeah.
Like the system just wants to get you out. There's a very low quality of care overall. And so you don't get things explained to you that well. You don't get the in-depth understanding of what's going on. And so ChatGPT is such a valuable tool to be able to take what you hear from doctors, take what you see online, synthesize it, be able to ask 100 questions. Like, I've asked 100 questions about all the cuts and scrapes I have all over me, like sending pictures. I know exactly what to be doing at this particular stage of the healing process. And you'd never get that from a doctor. And so I think
in
it's
Canada, you go to the doctor, they treat you like your IQ is 20. Like everyone's IQ is just 20, and that's how they're giving you information. Like when I get hurt, I don't even go, because like most of my injuries are in areas I've already had injuries before, and I know what they're gonna say, and it's gonna be so surface level and basic that you start not wanting to go to the doctor over here.
That's why you're doing that H-1B research.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, folks, another great episode of Topline. Smash the subscribe button on YouTube. Give us 5 stars where you listen to your podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.